I'm going to break my number one rule. This Baylor team, based on the eye test, looks like the 2021 national championship team. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Locked On Baylor. Happy Monday to you. I'm your host, Cam Stewart. Today's episode brought to you by Nissan, and with me, coming back to the pod, back to the mud, Mr. Branden MacKinnon, our hoops expert, Branden MacKinnon. And Branden, what a weekend it was for the Bears. How does it feel to be back in the game as the Bears are starting to peak in the month of March?
Dude, it's incredible. I'm so stoked to be back. For those of you guys who are like, thank God that guy's gone. Surprise. You cannot get rid of me. But I took a hiatus. My wife and I welcomed our first baby into the world. Beautiful baby girl. She went to her first Baylor game, saw us bushwhack Kansas, and see Bill Self cry. And now that my life is stabilized, my daughter's sleeping more than 3 hours at a time, I'm ready to dive back in and make time for stuff that's more fun than changing diapers. So that's the bar, Cam. That's the bar.
That's it.
Yeah.
My two basketball experts on this show both had babies around the same time. And I got to say, I'm so jealous because I was 25 when I went to my first Baylor game that they beat Kansas.
Wow, tough.
Your daughter did a lot better in that respect. What, a couple of months here? Dang, like that's what a comeback, truly. What a time to be a Baylor Bears fan in all reality. And just an electric atmosphere on Saturday in that win over Kansas. And the first guy I thought of who did not lead the team in rebounds nor scoring, but the first guy I thought of when it comes to that win on Saturday was Yves Missi. I mean, I'm almost thinking to call him a unicorn is almost putting it too lightly at this point.
I think so too. And anytime we want to make those claims, I keep reminding myself, he's supposed to be a senior in high school right now. Like, imagine if he was like, I'll play until I'm a senior at Prolific Prep. He would have risen to a top 3, probably prospect, just seeing where, Trey Johnson has fallen below BJ Edgecombe, Baylor Bear. We'll do all the recruiting stuff later, but Cam knows that's where I can't help myself.
You're such a sicko there.
Yeah. I am a sicko. I mean, speaking of Yves Missi, when he said he was considering Baylor, I DM'd him jokingly and said I could get him an NIL deal with Yves Saint Laurent, the fashion brand. He then replied, and I said, I can't really, but I would love for you to come to Baylor. So I am a recruiting sicko.
It kind of works. It kind of worked.
It kind of did. Well, he actually, it's pretty full anyway. But yeah, so I could have probably gone and gotten us in trouble there. But yes, Yves Missi looks incredible. I mean, started the game by baptizing KJ Adams, who Fran Fraschilla always says is the best athlete in the Big 12. And I'm not trying to call out Fran, but I mean, Yves, KJ Adams pushed him back, and then with his wingspan, did the equivalent of the Dwight Howard, I can't quite get there, but I'm going to try and win the dunk contest by throwing it in thing. But it's way more impressive when you're doing it over someone. So, yeah, man, it was wild. And then he just continued taking Dickinson to work off the dribble. So quick, great footwork. I could go on and on. But, yeah, I know you said you wanted to start there.
And just challenging Dickinson and winning was incredible.
Yes.
Which he's kind of done all season long. I talked about it in a short of Janai Broome had a good game against him, but Missi also had a really good game. He outplayed Filipowski in a game that they unfortunately lost. And now he's outplayed Dickinson twice. He's gone against these guys head to head and done really well.
Yeah, I think what makes him have that unicorn ceiling is when you look at the three guys you just brought up, which are probably some of the top 10 post players in the country. Janai Broome, that's maybe a reach, but he has the intangibles and he can go off.
Yeah.
Janai Broome, Filipowski, and Dickinson all are substantially slower and a bit more cumbersome. That's probably a nice way to put it, in and outside of the paint. Missi's footwork is so refined already that he is able to take those guys off the bounce create good angles of attack to the rim, and create separation that also gives him the ability to like see what's happening around him without getting muddy and like kind of clumped up in the paint against guys that have a bigger profile. So I think it's exciting to see, and he's just getting better. I mean, he's truly continuing to improve.
He's a freaking sponge, man. Like he just doesn't make the same mistake twice, which is incredible for a guy like you said is supposed to still be in high school. And
the
one
dude
guy
should be going to prom in 8 weeks, and he's like, I'm just gonna go to the March Madness instead.
Yeah, man, he's gonna be shopping for a draft suit that time, man. Like that's nuts. Yes. And one guy who has actually benefited from that, and Eve has benefited from this guy too, is someone who got a lot of flack earlier in the conference schedule. But man, RayJ Dennis looks like one of the best guards in the country right now.
He does. He does. He had some early conference play RayJ turnovers against Kansas. Played a little bit. I think he got a little bit. He kind of sped up. DeJuan Harris will do that to anybody in the country, though. He's one of the best perimeter guards in America, and so a little bit of a pass. But there were 2 or 3 cross-court passes that even from my nosebleed season ticket seats, I was like, RayJ, you're killing me, dog. You're doing everything right except that. But despite those, he's so in control. He commands the offense, and he makes everyone around him better. I think it's very interesting to see his approach of like, they talk about quarterbacks feeling out the defense in the first half. I think RayJ really feels out defenses in a way where he will really play at his own pace, power dribble through the paint, always looking around, causing defenses to collapse. I mean, he's a tremendous asset for Baylor.
And they face Texas tonight, which just seems weird the way they're playing right now. Baylor, that is, that they've lost to Texas this year, and that was a game they threw away even when they weren't playing all that well. Any keys to victory from the Branden MacKinnon scouting mind tonight as the Longhorns come in and are still searching for one more signature victory?
Yeah, I haven't. Well, I guess Lenardi doesn't really update his like in-out bracket. I imagine Texas is like firmly in, maybe for last 4 in, but
yeah, it would take a lot for them to not be in at this point. I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like that as well. I think it would have to be like they have a tough remaining schedule, but like lose to us, kind of suck in conference play or tournament. But yeah, I think for Texas, it's like no surprise that their entire offense starts and stops with the production of Tyrese Hunter and Max Asmus. Why is it pronounced Asmus? It's spelled A.
Dude, that makes no sense.
It drives me up
I thought people were just saying it wrong, and I was the only one right. I hit that problem a lot, but that just makes no sense. I don't know if it's a German thing or what.
Yeah, it's like one more reason that I'm irritated to no end with.
You can't trust him. You can't trust him.
You can't. He like just does. The guy doesn't believe in phonics.
Name right.
It's ridiculous. But no, I mean their offense starts and stops with the production of those 2 guards, and when they're getting good looks from behind the 3-point line, and that primarily happens when Texas moves the ball well, which is not a hot take. Like you're going to generate better offense when the ball flies around, and we need to defend out. That also opens up stuff for like Dylan Mitchell, which can be problematic. So I think keys to beating this Texas Longhorn team one more time really is how can we limit their 3-point efficiency? I think it'll be interesting to see if we open in the zone and see if, they try and shoot us out of the zone. And if so, then how do we stay glued to their guards against in man if we switch off screens? What do you think?
Can I do a cop out and agree with all those things? Because like we saw in that first game, like it really runs through those 2 guys. And look, they're one of the best scoring backcourts in the country still. Like they can do all kinds of things. Consistency's been a real issue for them this year. And I hate thinking back to that game because Baylor completely threw it away. Like they didn't do anything really poor in that game until the last 8 minutes. And it was really then just bad decision-making offensively. And this is such a different team, even though they were putting up good offensive numbers back then. Like I think everyone understands their role a lot better this time around. So I'm looking forward to the game tonight, Branden. I really am. And I agree. I'm going.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say one thing because I think you made a really good point of like early in the season. I think we need to remember this. Is this where you were going too?
Probably. I usually bump up my own points. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the immature has such a negative connotation. Maybe lack of experience is better.
Mm-hmm.
Lack of Big 12 experience of our core rotation at that time. The Big 12 is such a different game. You really can't take your foot off the gas. We saw Kansas try and storm back against Baylor to where it took a lot of like focused offense down the stretch to close that game out at home and cover. Thank you. But against Texas, it was early in the season. You think about guys who had never played in a Big 12 game before or had played very limited minutes, meaningful minutes in a Big 12 game in a pressure situation. RayJ obviously transferred, Jaden, Jacoby, Eves, all of those guys that are playing huge minutes for us. I think it was just kind of like a get our feet wet early in the season. I don't expect to see us make the same mistakes again because we've improved throughout the entirety of the Big 12 conference schedule.
Yeah. No, that's a good point based off my apparently good point. So I appreciate that. Brandon's got even another good point. Trust me on this one. He has got another good point coming up after this. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Let me ask you this. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things just a little bit further and are wondering what adventure could be around that next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventures to the next level. That Nissan Rogue, it's perfect for those city drives and the great escapes. Okay, they got Google built in, always updating assistant to call on for almost everything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Play Store, built right in to the HD touchscreen, and it is perfect, the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. Or maybe you're looking something for like the 2024 Nissan Armada. Okay, it's going to change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. Tow bigger, explore further in the 2024 Armada. So take the Nissan Rogue, the Pathfinder, or the Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Back with Branden MacKinnon of Our Daily Bears, basketball expert. And Branden, because you're a friend, I'm going to allow this, okay? And an expert. Sure. I'm going to allow this. I'm going to break a cardinal sin that I set for this show probably like 2 months ago. Okay. And that is to compare this team to one of the best basketball teams I've ever seen. Outside of the 2023-24 Boston Celtics, the 2021 Baylor Bears are arguably the best basketball team I've ever seen against their competition. By the way, the Celtics squeak out one by 52 yesterday against the Golden State Warriors, but what have they ever done? Anyway, so you've got a story. It's come out today. So if you want, pause this pod right now, go read Branden's story because he's makes some excellent points in there comparing this team to the 2021 national championship team. Branden, the floor is yours. Take it away. What is this comparison?
So I would love to talk about the Celtics. For those of you who have listened when Cam and I get on before, we're both from Massachusetts and went to Baylor. So true sickos. But I won't talk about the Celtics. I will follow your direction and talk about the comparisons. Let me start with a caveat. That is, I'm not saying every single player that I draw comparisons to on this year's team are as good as the national championship team. That would be ridiculous is the word that comes to mind. That would be inauthentic. And I think it would be a bit foolish to make that comparison. Because like you said, they were truly, I think, the best college basketball team of all time.
Right up there, man.
However, I think when you look at the structure of the team, and this is what I hit on the article, is I think Scott has done a better job of building, or not just Scott, his whole staff, of building players that fit the mold and roles from the national championship team and from even outside of Baylor, teams that have won recent national championships that make me extremely optimistic about this year's team. So that's what the article covers. We can, take that and talk about any comparisons you'd like, but that's like the high level of why I see the comparisons. I think the structure and the players in place fill roles that we've seen from probably 4 of the 5 last national champions, including the 2021 national champion Baylor Bears.
Yeah, and let me ask you this, because I don't want to give away the whole article. I want people to read it, of course, but what was the best like-for-like comparison that you found between these two teams?
Yeah, I also don't want to give away the whole article, but can I give you two?
Yes, please do.
There's like a 1A and a 1B. So for the premises of it, I basically went position by position, or maybe not position, player by player in our top 6 rotation, right? So think the top 6 guys that are going to play when, and especially when Langston's healthy, because he's one of those. But the 2 best comparisons that I feel like, to me, just like hit me in the face, and I crowdsourced this to make sure that I'm not just crazy and like grasping at straws. Because for anyone that has read my Our Daily Bear stuff before, my articles were literally titled "I Test." There was 0 stats. I did 0 statistical analysis. Just like, what am I watching from my couch with a crisp Dr. Pepper, figuring out and watching basketball, right? So comparison number 1 that I felt was really spot on was Jalen Bridges to Maceo Teague. I think the veteran leadership, the offensive efficiency in terms of not being the first or second option or even third option at times on offense, but being there when stuff gets stagnant, the ability to take guys off the bounce, but really just assassins from the corner, and the connector of a defense. If you ever watch Jalen or remember Maceo playing off-ball defense, their length and wingspan created havoc on the backside and help. So that's one. And then the second one was, I feel like RayJ Dennis and Jared Butler have way more similarities than people think. Am I saying that RayJ Dennis is going to win the Final Four Most Outstanding Player? Yes. Just kidding. Yep. Maybe. But from a floor general standpoint, I feel comfortable when RayJ has the ball. I felt comfortable when Jared had the ball. I personally haven't felt that the last 2 years. Nothing against Akinjo or our platoon effort from last year. But those are the 2 comparisons that I feel best about. I made a number of others that I think are similar as well. But yeah, those are the 2, 1A, 1B. What do you think? Am I crazy? Am I off the wall? I mean,
no, I like them. So obviously RayJ isn't the sharpshooter that Butler was. I mean, a decent shooter for sure. But I like the way you framed it there. And I especially really like that Jalen Bridges comparison, because one of the great compliments I can give to a basketball player offensively is something that rings true for Bridges and did for Maceo Teague, is they never dribble too much. Never. Yeah. They know exactly what their role is. And I'll use that word role a lot. What their shot is, what their game is. And, Maceo was a guy who could create off the dribble, I think, better than a lot of people thought he could. And Jalen Bridges is kind of the same way, but they're never just
up. The Maceo step back pull up in Allen Fieldhouse the first time he did Call God. I was like, he has a tight handle, but we never need to see it. You're exactly right.
Yeah, and they're just never like dribbling into trouble. They're never having one of those plays where you're like, oh boy, this is going side right now. There's no way this play ends well. Like, you know what I mean? And even good players have that often, like, or not all the time, but like good players will do that. Jared Butler probably did that a few times. I don't know. But I think that's a good comparison there. And so that leads me to kind of my next question of, obviously, Branden, this team isn't as dominant as that team was for a multitude of reasons. But what is something that you were looking at in your research or looking through your eye test that you were like, but man, the 2021 team had this team doesn't yet have this factor?
So the experience of playing together is a big concern.
Yeah.
Right. Most national champions have played together for a long time. That's a reason also why I'm low on Houston. I feel like they have some plug and play guys that maybe haven't played together as long. But that's one thing that concerns me and gives me pause about making the comparison. The idea of the article was that people will either vehemently agree with stuff or old man yell at the porch at other things, which I think is fair. However, I think that as we're getting and playing longer together, this is stuff we've hit on this episode, we're getting more meaningful minutes together with our core top 5, top 6, top 7 guys, to where I think we're going to play our best basketball in March. Can that replace the catalyzing and binding experience of the 2021 team? Looking back to 2020, felt like they could win the national championship. Season gets stolen from them because of COVID. Now we're back and we've had 2 full years together. No. But do I think that we can peak at the right time and put the pieces together? Absolutely.
All right, Branden, before I let you go, I said this kind of in real time as I was thinking it for the first time on the post-game show Saturday, and I want to get your thoughts. So at this point in the season, there is still 2 regular season games plus the Big 12 tournament before we get into the dance. But at this point of the season, early in March, is this the best you've felt about a Baylor team as it's playing right now since that national championship team?
Yeah, I think so, because we've been healthier. I know Langston.
Yeah, 22, that was the big one. Like, they just weren't healthy.
Yeah, we've been healthier than 21 or 22, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you think back to 22 and 23, if you think back to 22, LJ was always day to day. And then the day after the season, he puts out a video on Instagram that he had surgery on both feet. I was like, this is not day to day, And so, like, we were never fully healthy, but it feels like, Aaron in 23, like, the John. So it feels like at this point, we are truly in good health. I mean, Langston, who knows, like, where he is. Scott says day to day, but it didn't seem that serious. So I feel better from a health standpoint. I also just feel better, like, everything I, kind of talk about in the piece is we have this structure in place that looks eerily similar to the 21 team, that looks very similar to the next 2 national champions in Kansas and UConn. We have a very, very similar mold. And I think that Scott has also showed, from a coaching standpoint, a willingness to be adaptable and pivot. The zone to man switch in Kansas, I think, was huge. I think we'd seen him try and just play man all the time the last 2 years and not be willing to switch. So I think we have a really good set, and I'm excited. I think we can win it all. I truly do. I also wouldn't be surprised if we could bounce in the round of 32.
No.
But I think the ceiling is, I do truly feel like the ceiling is a national championship. I do. Which I don't know that I would have said about last year's team, candidly.
For sure. And I think I might have said that in jest last year. But it is kind of a weird thing to say. They will be, probably by the time you guys are listening to this, they'll be back as a top 10 team. But this was a 15th ranked team, which I mean, going into March, there's usually only like 5, maybe 6 teams that can legitimately win it. And it feels wide open this year to the point where Baylor can absolutely fit into that. Go find it. OurDailyBears.com will have it in depth on why this team looks a lot like that 2021 national championship team. Branden, thanks so much for joining. We're going to have you on before the tournament, and I'm going to hold you to that.
I would love to, man. If you can give me 24 hours notice and we can coordinate nap schedules, I'm dialed in. I'm ready to rock.
No promises, but I will try.
Yeah. Well, I've been listening, even though I've been on, and you've been doing a great job. So it's awesome. We're not just pumping up each other's tires, but basketball season is our favorite time of year. So let's get after it.
We're truly sickos. Branden, thanks so much again. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get your buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. So bet on something easy like, I don't know, Celtics 51.5 against the Golden State Warriors. Easy money. And bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with those quick bets, the same game parlays, the exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to shoot your shot. Okay, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON, and join. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Special thanks once again to Branden MacKinnon. Absolutely one of the best in the business. He and Matt Linnell, I'm so blessed to have them as my basketball experts. They know this game inside and out. They know this team inside and out. And it's obviously kind of a fun occasion tonight, taking on the Texas Longhorns one last time as conference foes in the Foster Pavilion anyway. They could face them in Kansas City, but boy, do we need to just send them out the right way. Because, like, look at the numbers all time, and it's misleading. Obviously, Texas has a nice lead over Baylor all time. But you look at the last 10 years with Scott Drew, he has made it a mission to beat the crud out of the Texas Longhorns, and that he has done. I think they've won 6 of the last 8 against Texas. So in like 6 of the last 7 at home. So they really work the Longhorns. That's going to be a fun one tonight. We're going to talk some Texas memories in the show tomorrow as well. But obviously, big news out of the women's basketball game on Sunday, and that was senior day for the Bears, and they had 3 jerseys up there. Noticeably absent was Sarah Andrews' jersey. She's a senior. Well, that's because she got on the mic and did the Jordan Belfort, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. All-time moment, great moment. The house was brought down and all that. No, but seriously, this was a nice thing for Baylor and for Nicki Collen, because Sarah Andrews has had kind of an up and down season, but we know that when she's on, she can be one of the great floor generals in women's college basketball. And I look at, two starters for the Bears, and Asia Blackwell has gone in and out as a starter. Her and Dre Edwards are also in that senior day festivity. So next year, that's two real contributors that are gone. And you obviously have a good amount coming back, but you're going to plug in some more young players into that lineup next year, and having someone like Sarah Andrews there to help guide the ship is massive for the Bears, and massive for Nicki Collen, who I think will be thinking this team needs to take the next step next year and really compete for a conference title, because honestly, I thought they should have been doing that this year. Especially the way they came into conference play. They were a top 5 team at one point. You need to see them make that next step next year, and really start pushing for that Big 12 championship and playing home games at the NCAA tournament. So that was a quick thought on that. It was obviously a nice victory for the women's team. A 22-point victory over Oklahoma State, as they are kind of setting things back on track, headed to Kansas City this week for the Big 12 tournament. Asia Blackwell and Dre Edwards, thank you guys so much for what you've done for the program. Both terrific players. It's sad to see you guys go. So talking about that, we'll talk about that more later on in the week, on what their prospects look like in this Big 12 tournament and how that will help them out in terms of bracketology and seeding and all that fun stuff for the NCAA tournament. One other thing I wanted to bring up, or actually two other things. How about we just go quick fire? This is, a medley here in the third segment. Baylor baseball. Hats off. Take a bow, man. Oh, I don't want to see my hair that much. But Baylor had a team coming in, and y'all, I was not looking forward to this. Oral Roberts comes in. The Bears have only won one game on the season going into this. They're facing a team that was in Omaha last year, beat TCU in Omaha last year. And all Baylor does is sweep them. Second sweep in the Mitch Thompson era. I cannot stress this enough. Oral Roberts played in the College World Series last year, and Baylor just swept them away like that. Oh, man, I hope this is a turning point for this team, which is obviously, it's been through a lot already this season. I mean, three of their regulars starting 9 were out for the season. Are out for the season, but were out for the season within the first 2 weeks of the season. So we'll hopefully be talking some more positive things about them as the season goes on. And I did want to kind of close the book on the Mackenzie Wilson thing here. She did not play this weekend in Baylor softball series. It's unclear whether she will return to the team, but I saw just a lot of comments out there about how she should be kicked out of the school. And maybe I'm being too lenient. I just don't think that should be the case. We got to remember, these are kids at the end of the day. Is it good? No. I'm not here to say that it's good, or that she shouldn't have, face any kind of punishment or have no responsibility. That's not the case. But she didn't physically harm anybody. This could have been something that was nipped in the bud after one time if Target wanted to do that. I'm not saying that they're not a victim here, but it's just one of those things. Like, we do forget these are kids, they're college kids. They're but for the grace of God go I, throwing stones out of a glass house, those kinds of things. I don't know that I did it 11 times, but I probably did something like that by mistake or otherwise when I was in college. I probably didn't scan something. I don't know. I'm not going to go as far as what Mo Porter's saying on Twitter, that they would have got way worse if they did way worse when Mo Porter was on the football team 7 or 8 years ago. I don't want to go with that, but I just think in the grand scheme of things, it is not life-threatening. She will learn from this. By all accounts, she seems like a great kid. and one of the leaders of that team. So I hope she can still play again. It's not something, if I were a manager at any other job, it's not something I would fire somebody over. Let's say that. So unless they were stealing from your own store, but that's a different story. So just wanted to close the book on that, because I just think that's a step too far for people to be like, oh, I hope she never plays again. I hope Baylor kicks her out. Like, I think that's a little too far. She'll be reprimanded, absolutely, and she'll deserve a punishment, absolutely. But let's tap the brakes and remember who we're talking about here. Anyway, just wanted to close the book on that. We will be back tomorrow with a breakdown of what happened in this Texas game. Let me know what you think, how you think the game is going to go tonight down in the comments below. Also comment what you think about Branden's article. I thought it was fantastic. I know there will be people who will disagree with it, but I think he lays it out perfectly in that article. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe and tell your friends. And thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We'll be back tomorrow with your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.